Where does evangelical homophobia come from? Evangelicals themselves will say that the Bible, and the Bible alone, is the source of their views on homosexuality. But that's not what the history of evangelicalism teaches us. Hi, I'm William Stell, a historian of religion and sexuality in the U.S., and the author of Born Again Queer, a history of evangelical gay activism and the making of anti-gay Christianity. Just like the history of evangelical views on gender, and just like the history of evangelical views on race, there are a host of factors, social, political, theological, and otherwise, that help to account for why evangelicals have done what they've done and said what they've said when it comes to homosexuality. And while the Bible is certainly a factor in this history, it makes more sense to think of the Bible not as the source of evangelicalism's anti-gay positions, but as the tool that evangelicals use to advance those positions. So what other factors gave rise to evangelical views on homosexuality? Here's a big one you probably weren't expecting: anti-communism. In the 1950s, the early days of the modern evangelical movement, Americans' perceptions of homosexuality were heavily shaped by anti-communism. In the words of David K. Johnson, the constant pairing of communists and queers led many to see them as indistinguishable threats. And evangelicals were especially influenced by this pairing, in part because the most famous ex-communist at mid-century, Whittaker Chambers, was also ex-gay and converted to evangelical Christianity. Meanwhile, evangelical leaders like Billy Graham and Fred Schwartz were promoting an especially hardcore anti-communism, which, given the association of communism with homosexuality, facilitated the development of an especially hardcore anti-gay stance among evangelicals. But throughout the 1950s and into the 1960s, evangelicals talked relatively little about homosexuality and the Bible. More often, they talked about homosexuality in the context of and as a part of the communist threat.